I'll never forget the way the metal bit into my skin. Not because I hadn't felt it before, but because this time the whole world was watching. Maybe you've seen the video. Maybe you've scrolled past a headline about a black judge humiliated in public. Maybe you shrugged and thought, yeah, that happens. But let me back up a second and tell you how a sunny Saturday in Montgomery turned into the day the system I served finally showed its real face. You know what I mean? It started with a parking lot, a tailored suit, and the idea that someone like me could never possibly belong behind the wheel of a brand new Lexus. I just finished giving this talk to a group of young black law students, telling them about dignity, about fighting through, about what it means to rise higher than anyone expects you to. My mother always said, don't ever shrink for anyone, so I never did. My locks pinned up, my suit crisp, my heels clicking, I walked out of that mall feeling like I'd done something right. I had a birthday present in one hand, my car keys in the other, thinking maybe for just one afternoon, I could be regular. I could be free. Then, before I even got my bag in the back seat, I heard the voice. Cold, sharp, rehearsed. Don't play smart with me. I don't care how you're dressed. A woman like you doesn't drive a car like this unless it's stolen. Where's the real owner? Huh. He was tall, stocky, 50-something, face baked by too many Alabama summers and too many years of being the man nobody challenged. Officer Brent Holloway. His badge gleamed, but his eyes, I'll never forget the way they skipped right past my face and landed on my skin. He didn't ask for my name. He didn't want my ID. When I told him I was a judge, he laughed. She says she's a judge, y'all. Can you believe that? The crowd phones out, mouths open, some giggling, some whispering and step in. They just filmed. You know how it is. Everybody wants a front row seat to someone else's humiliation. I tried God. I tried keep it together. Tried to show him the badge, the keys, anything, but he was already in performance mode. He made up his mind, and he wanted everyone to see it. I could feel the weight of every stare, the sting of every whisper. Not a criminal, not even a person, just a threat. That's all I was in that moment. You ever notice how even the air changes when someone makes you feel small? I did. My wrists were yanked behind me, the cuffs slammed on, and as the pain shot up my arms, it hit me. None of this was about a car. This was about putting me in my place, about reminding everyone watching that a black woman doesn't get to have too much, certainly not pride, certainly not power. But here's the thing, you didn't know what none of them knew. I'd spent my whole life being told to be twice as good. I was born in Birmingham, raised by a mother who worked 2 jobs and still found time to read me Maya Angelou at night. I sat through white classrooms where professors called on every hand but mine. I passed the bar exam with trembling fingers and a heart pounding out every ancestor's warning and every dream they'd left me. I didn't survive all that just to let Brent Holloway walk me to his cruiser like I was less than nothing. Still, the truth is, even after years on the bench, after every verdict and every late-night prepping case law, there's a moment when the cuffs are on and the laughter is loud when you wonder if maybe the world's been right all along. Maybe you really are the punchline. Maybe your dignity was just a mask. But I didn't break. Not then. I looked up at the blue sky, and I remember my mother's voice. Don't you shrink. And something in me shifted, call it resolve, call it rage, call it survival. Whatever it was, it's what made me stand up the next morning and decide. I'm not just fighting for myself. I went home that night, handcuff marks raw and angry on my wrists, replaying every second in my head. My phone exploded with messages, people sending me the video before I'd even processed what had happened. Some strangers offered support, some called me names. But all I heard, over and over, was Brent's voice. I'm not falling for your courtroom fairy tales. It echoed in my bones. Monday came, and I went to work. I didn't say a word, but I started making calls. Old friends in internal affairs, people I trusted in the Department of Justice, colleagues who owed me favors. I asked for files, for histories, for whispers buried in the system's dark corners. Every conversation was careful, just curious. I'd say, just checking in. But underneath, I was laying out a case. Not just for myself. For every person who'd ever been handcuffed for existing. Meanwhile, Brent walked around with his chest out. The department put him on leave, but he thought it would blow over. Guys like that always do. At a bar, he bragged to his buddies called me another one of those types. Only his partner, Rodriguez, looked uncomfortable. You sure you want to keep saying that, man? Brent just laughed. These people always play the victim. But the city was buzzing. Protesters outside the precinct. Local news ran my story. Politicians started to hedge their words, watching which way the wind was blowing. My best friend, Charisse, came over with wine one night. Are you really going to take it public? She asked. This isn't just about me anymore, I said. Then burn it down, she whispered. Just make sure you're still standing in the ashes. So I did. I filed a formal review of Brent's entire record as a judge that pulled up complaints buried so deep you'd think they'd never see daylight. And once my name was attached, the department couldn't ignore them. More people came forward. Young men, women, even an old sergeant who said Brent had always gone too far. The twist? I was assigned to preside over Brent's disciplinary hearing. That's right, the man who cuffed me in public had to stand in my courtroom. The air was heavy that morning. Everyone knew what had happened. Brent sat there, small in his suit, eyes darting everywhere but at me. The testimony came Malik, a kid he'd thrown to the ground for matching a description. Marisol, a Latina mother he'd screamed at in front of her kids. And Sergeant Fields, who admitted Brent escalated peaceful situations, ignored protocol, made up his own rules. Brent's defense was weak. I didn't know she was a judge, he said. So, if I hadn't been a judge, you'd have been justified. I pressed. He faltered. I made calls based on what I thought I knew, he mumbled. Not what you can prove, but what your bias whispers, I said. The room held its breath. After all the evidence, I stood, the robe heavy on my shoulders. This isn't about one man or one mistake, I said. It's about a culture, a pattern, a silence that ends today. I terminated Brent's employment. I ordered an independent review of all his cases and every connected officer's cases. I set out a new mandate. Mandatory, permanent anti-bias and de-escalation training monitored by civilian legal advisors. People gasped. No one expected it. It wasn't revenge. It was repair. Brent was stunned. As reporters rushed outside, as activists cheered, and victims finally breathed easy, I didn't feel triumphant. Just determined. I handed my resignation letter to Charisse and told her I didn't come this far to play chess with injustice. I came to flip the board. That resignation changed everything. Suddenly, I wasn't Judge Brooks. I was the rebel, the reformer, the one shaking things up. My living room filled with activists, lawyers, mothers who'd lost sons to the system. Brent faded from the headlines, but word got out he'd started running anti-bias training in a rural town. Not redemption, maybe, but responsibility. Malik, that boy Brent had once cuffed, graduated from law school years later. Opened a legal aid clinic, Brooks and Truth Foundation. I was there the day it opened. The student had become the protector. I never went back to the bench. I built something new in Advocacy Network, a movement that made Montgomery just the beginning. Some nights, though, I still ask myself, did I go too far? Did I become the thing I was fighting? At a community event, a young woman asked, "Do you still believe the system can change?" I told her, I believe people can change it if they fight hard enough, if they refuse to get comfortable. The day the Community Integrity and Accountability Act passed, law mandating independent oversight, sweeping police reform, statewide anti-bias training, I watched from the crowd, not the bench. The governor signed it, but it was my fingerprints all over that bill. That was the victory. Not my name in the lights, but my work in the law. One night, on the steps of the Supreme Court, a little girl pressed a note into my hand. I want to be like you. I crouched and whispered, "No, baby, you're going to be better." That's what this was always about, every kid watching, every voice unheard. Now, take a breath and sit with this. This isn't just my story. It's the story of anyone who's ever been told to shrink. If you felt something, if this made you mad, made you hope, made you question, drop your thoughts below. Where do you stand on justice? On truth? On what it takes to break a system built to silence us? Let's not let this be the end. Let this be the place your story begins. If you're ready for more, hit that subscribe, hit that like, and join us because change is only ever one story, one fight, one voice away.